Hi everyone, I'm Gary Null and I'd like to welcome you to a special presentation. This is a continuation of our series on self-empowering issues, providing insights and information and hopefully inspiration that allow you the capacity to make positive change wherever you're having dilemmas or problems. The topic for today is, I'm not finished yet. Why? Why is that important? Because how often have we thought we're at a particular place in life where we don't have to work that hard. We don't have to do anything that new. We don't have to stress ourselves. We've gotten to a comfortable place of accommodating ourselves with our environment, our relationships, our career. In fact, how often are we really working for our security? But look at the opposite of that, because everything has to be measured by its opposite at all times. The people who need security are looking at what? What's the opposite of security? Insecurity. Which means that if you're really making a decision from needing to be secure, it's because you're insecure. I've met so many people who feel they don't have to do anything more. They've made it. Then when you ask, well, what does it mean to have made it? It means I'm comfortable. All right, so comfort becomes a position where a lot of people strive for. And they assume that with that comfort comes security. Why? Because things become predictable. Well, what's wrong with that? What's wrong with finding a place where you feel secure and comfortable and confident in your daily rituals, knowing what you're going to eat, knowing what's going to be the nature of a conversation. And after all, at a certain point when you're around people for a while, you know what they're going to answer. You know how you're going to get an answer. You know responses in advance, right? Do you ever find that boring? When you think, well, why ask the question? I know how they're going to answer. I know how it's going to taste. I know how it's going to look. I'm suggesting that there are three dynamics that we should review to understand why we are so predictable. For example, it's very predictable that those people who are Republican are going to vote Republican. With rare exception, Democrat will vote Democrat and independent. But they don't ask themselves, is that really the best choice? Have I tried to deconstruct the value of my beliefs to see, are they legitimate? And the answer is, I will never challenge anything if in the process of challenging I discover that what I was believing in doesn't honor the truth. So rather than probe so far that you probe right through something that is false, you leave it intact and honor the illusion of it being real, rather than testing to see, is it real? There are contradictions abounding everywhere. In fact, most of life becomes a contradiction to what we really should be doing and believing in. How do we get this way? Well, take a look at the larger culture. The primary culture is what dictates almost everything we do in life. The primary culture says if you do certain things in a certain way, you'll be rewarded. And the primary way that we're rewarded is that we are accepted. Most people have a need to be accepted. Most people function in life as the worker ants. They're not dynamic. They're not assertive, they're not aggressive, they're not terribly creative, but they're absolutely essential for the common good. Where would we be without electricians and plumbers and masons, and the people that sew your clothes or make your eyeglasses, or the people who help build a house or run a railroad train or fly an airplane? Where would we be without people who are pouring the concrete for our streets or making the appliances that make our lives better? Everywhere we look, the people who are essential to the tightness of the fabric, keeping it working, are rarely given acknowledgement, are almost invisible. These are people, however, who are the virtual foundation upon which all of society rests. And yet with all that power they have, they represent about 85 to 90% of all people. They're never asked, what is right and wrong about their lives and the larger society. They are told from above what to do, what to believe, what to eat, what to think, where to go to school, what to learn. They have no input in the curriculum, let alone how it's taught. They are not part of leading any fashion revolution, educational revolution. They are meant, under the best of circumstances, is to obey and be rewarded. The reward is a job and security. And for the most part, as long as they have that security and can maintain a certain standard of living, they comply. That compliance frequently means don't challenge the people who've provided you with the basics. And hence, those who sit at the higher level, and then it's hierarchical. There's a very clear pecking order. A teacher does not have the same authority nor respect as the professor. The professor does not have the same authority or respect as the chairman of the department. So there are levels to which we must always look to for guidance or acceptance if we have an idea. And most ideas come from two people, those who are policymakers and those who are opinion leaders. Look at legislators, they're policymakers. Look at corporate CEOs and the people around them, policymakers. Look at the people in the media, like celebrities, opinion leaders. They take something they like, make everyone aware of how hip and interesting and good it is, and then people say, gee, I want that. That's why it's never the policymaker who's hired to do a commercial, it's the opinion leader. You don't hire the man who makes Nikes to do a commercial. You hire Michael Jordan or Tiger Woods, who gets a contract to endorse a product. All that comes within the larger structure of society. And depending upon our parents and our teachers and other people, what position they played in that will frequently determine where we feel most comfortable and where we then start to process our own life and beliefs. So if we were told, as we were for decades, that women did not have the emotional stability to be able to make proper and intelligent decisions, and never under crisis conditions, they then shouldn't be given positions of responsibility, it was accepted. It didn't matter that it was wrong. Right and wrong have nothing to do with the paradigm. Power and control have everything to do with it. Look at how often you will hear the President of the United States or leading legislators make a statement and you think, my God, that's stupid. They're wrong. Absolutely wrong. And yet Americans are going, yes, yes, yes. It's like they're praying to those people. Guide us, we will not, we will obey. We are unworthy. We are dumb. We don't make us think. And yet people are not dumb. And people are not lazy. But they're fearful. Because on a very primal level, we are conditioned by reward and punishment. What's good and what's bad. And the trouble is we had a lot more threats about no than we did about yes. 80 no's to every yes growing up as a child. That sticks. That's implanted right into the cells of our being, because every cell in your body holds the memory of every experience you've ever had. Every word, every smell, taste, sensation, good or bad, is construed then as either positive or negative by the energy within the cells. And then over top of that experience come the social conditioning to say, that's bad, that's good. Now you may feel something that's good, like masturbating as a kid, but your parent says that's bad. So now you're caught in a conflict. Ooh, if I do something that makes me feel good, I'm bad. Guilt, shame. Boom, guilt and shame, where are you going to go? All right? And then you're going to think you're going to get pimples or blind. Imagine what happens when you start getting pimples. You think you're halfway to punishment. Everywhere we look, we're asked to accept contradictions, because nobody wants to acknowledge that basic biological processes are a normal part of life. So they try to control it. And the more you look, the more you see that almost every single emotion, experience, is controlled, or at least they try to control it. And frequently what you see in the form of rebellion is nothing more than someone waking up one day and saying, I don't believe this, and I don't want you telling me how I should feel or how I should live or what I should think. And you get the rebellion. And then you have the conflict. And today, you get a kid in conflict, that kid's going to lose. Because there was a time when they could run up the stairs, shouting at you, slam a door, and then an hour later come back downstairs and it was all forgotten. Today, that kid is more likely to be diagnosed as ADHD or ADD and put on Ritalin. 11 million kids today are on psychiatric drugs. 11 million. When I was going to school, it was 0. So it's a form of social control. It's also a form of control when parents don't allow their children to experience anything today. Overly protecting children, over-guiding children, over-manipulating children, not allowing the child to experience anything unless it's under the direct supervision and control of the parent means what? You've taken away, with a vaccine, with 30 vaccinations, you take away natural immune development, making the child, ironically, more susceptible to immune-related dysfunction. When you take away a child's capacity to learn through natural evolutionary processes of experiencing life, the good and the bad, the do's and the don'ts, and learning from that, you take away the child's capacity to function in a meaningful way. I've seen parents walk into a classroom carrying their kid who's 4 years old. The kid could have clearly walked. When I was growing up, my mother said, I'll see you later. Go out and play. And we went out and played. Do any of you actually remember that? Right? We were allowed to go play. Do you ever see any parent today say go play? No way. Here's a list, John. Calculus, computers, French, Russian, and that's before 3 in the afternoon. But I'm only 2 years old. That doesn't matter. How are you going to get into Harvard? Make us proud. We have little people manipulated at every level. And then they wake up one day and they don't know who they are. We have 81 million young people in America who are clueless about the meaning of their life. Ask them, what are you going to do when you're alone? 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 Don't ever ask me to be alone. I can't function alone. I'm a part of a collective whole of distracting exercises, computers, VHS, fashion, games, and anything else we have to do. But don't ask me to think in a constructive way with discipline towards the future. Everything's instant gratification. You're giving us $125 billion a year to spend, and it's not on homes or cars. It's on frivolous activities to keep us busy, keep us distracted. Here, go buy something. So now you want me to be thoughtful about the world and conscientious about people, understand the history of connection and evolution? No, why should I? I don't know who Clark Gable or Cary Grant is. And you think, whoa, we have disconnected these people from the greater interest of discovering for themselves because we've taken away the capacity for them to explore life. That's how fearful we are of someone making a mistake. And not because it will hurt them, but because it will hurt the image we have of a lack of control. So part of our insecurity is we're desperately seeking control. Because without that control, we'd fall apart. Part of our memory reminds us of what happened when you didn't have control, or we were told we were out of control. And nobody ever wants to get out of control in America. If they do, someone will come up, a stranger, smack you, get back into control. So everybody's seeking to be something that inherently they're not. So the one thing we all want then is security, because if you're secure, then things are predictable and you don't have to worry about things being out of control. You don't have to worry about strangers that you don't know walking down the street. You don't have to worry about foods that may be healthy or exotic because they're not getting into your body. You don't have to worry about conversations that may challenge you intellectually because you've stopped interest in exploring what the intellect doesn't know. Life has become passive. And when life becomes passive, you start shutting down the capacity of the brain to learn. The one thing that keeps us young is challenging environments. The more challenging the environment, the more we grow. That's why composers are the longest lived group of people in society, because they never stop the challenge. Television, passive. Reading, passive. Conversations, passive. Daily rituals, passive. You start looking at how much in a person's life is actually a challenge, and it's almost nothing. So when I say, I'm not finished, it means I'm not finished, you shouldn't be finished. You're getting to a point in your life where you want to finish the challenges and just make yourself comfortable. When you get comfortable, you're going to age, you stop growing. Why do you think we have gated communities? Why do you think we have selective groups that don't want others in their group? Why do you think we become tribal? And we are ruled by tribal leaders, where we're merely in there. And the most fervent and ardent of the supporters of the tribal leaders are the ones who are willing to be true believers and do anything to show the orthodox view is so rigid that they will never question, but merely follow mindlessly. Hence the collective mind. Where do we grow? Where do we evolve? How do we challenge what doesn't work? How do we remove things that are clearly against our best interest? We don't when you have that kind of mindset. All you have is them and us. They are the enemy. We are the chosen ones here. Intellectually, financially, stylishly. So we're looking for ways to fit in. And so in the larger society, you're not going to have growth. You have limited expression of freedom. And that limited expression will only be to the degree that you do not represent a threat. Now, within the larger structure, you have 700,000 physicians, more often than not using very toxic modalities that do not reverse the nature of a disease, but instead merely provide you with temporary relief. Some is necessary, but more often than not, it's not. They're not looking at things that could actually heal or prevent. Isn't it interesting? In all of the discussions by all the presidents that we've had, they never once talk about prevention. It's always about treatment. More drugs. Well, more affordable drugs. So they focus on the affordability of a drug, and nobody stands up and says, hold on a second. Why not prevent the conditions that the drugs are needed for? Common sense, right? Now, if I can understand that, and you can understand that, why can't they? Because once again, in a tribal society where you have one collective reality, you're not allowed to challenge that reality. Who are you to challenge it? The only people who have a right in any society to challenge the laws and rules and behavior and the dictates of that are the hierarchical leaders, the policy makers. And their message then goes to the opinion leaders. The average person is not there. So we live by this. And then we wonder why we're not getting healthier, but sicker. Why we're not getting happier, but sadder. Why we're not getting more fulfilled, but more depressed. Why we're not able to communicate one to another and be open and honest and vibrant, but instead we walk around as if we're one big psychological, physiological mess, hoping that something within the enormous industry of recovery and repair and maintenance, and that's all our society is today, repair, recovery, and maintenance. Service. America is nothing more than a service industry for the broken down bodies and souls and minds of its inhabitants. Now, wouldn't you think that you better understand that you're broken down on some level? And there's nothing within the orthodox model that's going to help you. If it did, we all would be better because we have millions of people all looking at how to solve the problem. Well, if millions of people spending $2 trillion this year on disease can't fix it, maybe it's because they've got the wrong model to work with. Maybe it's not more MIT graduates or more Harvard PhDs and MDs. Maybe it's not more money thrown at AIDS. We're going to give $15 billion, one guy says. Well, we're going to give 30. You could give $100 billion a day and you wouldn't find a single cure for AIDS because AIDS has nothing to do with the virus. It has everything to do with the health and wellness of the lifestyle. But is anyone willing to look at that? Yes. 5,000 MD, PhDs, activists, and journalists, but not one has ever been invited in to tell their story. Because the one thing you do not do when you control a paradigm, you never challenge the paradigm's legitimacy by bringing in non-believers. So if you're a Nobel Prize winner like Dr. Kary Mullis, who won the Nobel Prize for Chemistry and discovering the PCR, you're not invited in to say why the HIV virus could not by itself cause AIDS. Or you don't invite Dr. Gilbert in, or Professor Emeritus Stroman from UCLA at Berkeley, or Professor Peter Duisberg, or Dr. Professor Raznick, who is one of the world's leaders on protease inhibitors. You don't invite them in because they're too smart. They were, until they challenged something, they were a part of the hierarchy. They were policymakers in science, National Academy of Science. They were up there. Full professors, chairmen, award winners. There's a danger to a human virus infecting an entire body politic and corrupting it. So they eliminate. They have anti-human viral capacities. They exclude you from conversation, funding, being published. They exclude you from interrelating. They demonize you. They marginalize you until one day the best and brightest, from the Nobel Prize winner, the only person to have 2 unshared Nobel Prizes in the United States, Linus Pauling, is excluded outside. Why? They don't want that information. In Russia, it was Sakharov, Solzhenitsyn. Anywhere you have someone who has the capacity to show a big mirror and hold it right up in the face of a society and say, take a look. How you think you look and what you really look are not the same. Take a look. And people say, no, no, no. I will not. Oh, no, I can't. I don't want to see that. That's a truth I can't handle. What you can't handle, you won't look at. You know what you will do? You'll distract yourself. You'll look over here. Why are you looking over there? Well, it's brighter over here. All my doctors and scientists and educators and psychologists said, look over here. But the problem's over here. I know, but it's easier over here. I don't have any conflict. All I have to do is just obey. So obeying authority becomes more important than looking for truth. It always has. That's why we are a debted nation. That's why we are so sick. We're not looking for the truth. We're looking for acceptance. We're looking for security. Your security has made you a prisoner and pathological and no freedom. When you have to force yourself to be honest, then that forced expression will not reveal the truth behind the emotions. Inside that main paradigm is a subculture of the main culture. The subculture are those people who don't like the main culture, but need it and must exploit their talent, their personality. But while they're acting like they're free, there's nothing free about them. They can express themselves, but everything they do is directly related to the control from the main culture. Everywhere you look, everyone who you thought was hip and free, look who controls them, funds them, pays their bills. The wildest hip-hop guy who can do more drugs than a whale could sniff, all that jewelry that they get carpal tunnel syndrome trying to wear it, right? Pants down around their ass, but they're hip. It's all a game, isn't it? It's coming up with 16 different names instead of they don't like Joe Schmo. It's all a game, isn't it? Try to talk to them, say, don't jibe me, don't give me this vocabulary like you're hip because you can talk, and don't come with your posse at a party and surround yourself so nobody can see you, so you're real hip because nobody can talk to you, nobody can see you, but you want to be at a party? You want to be at a place that nobody can get to you, nobody can see you, you can't communicate with anyone. Why be at the party? Because they feel that that makes them special. No, that just makes them look stupid. And ask them, where's your money coming from? It's all within the main culture supporting the subculture. Now, if you want to really learn something, go to the counterculture, because the best in alternative healing, counterculture. The best in philosophy, the counterculture. the best in holistic lifestyles, from organic gardening to the peace movement, from human rights to civil rights, from women's rights, the counterculture. The counterculture can't influence direct culture. It has to first influence and be accepted by the subculture. So the subculture, who are the opinion leaders, take on something and champion it, and suddenly the main culture starts to test it, and only when they can control it do they take advantage of it. And then guess what? The main culture takes credit for nothing it had discovered and never gives credit to the counterculture. Because the last thing the main culture wants is for you to make a connection with these people over here, because these people are really free thinkers, self-sufficient. They don't have to live based upon insecurity. We can't let that kind of freedom become a part of how we live. Otherwise, who's going to be able to control us, manipulate us, make us feel insecure, make us feel we don't fit, not make us feel, gee, I don't know what the real meaning and purpose of my life is. How many people today wake up and have no idea who they are? They only know what they're supposed to do. Well, that confuses people. Then no problem. Go to a shrink. Watch Oprah or Phil. Take Prozac. Accept general anxiety disorder. Yeah, I got that. I can take the drug, then I don't feel it. No, you won't feel it. It's all controlled by the main culture. So all your reality must be formed in this box. And as long as you don't disobey, you'll be rewarded, no matter how sick or pathological you become. The moment you step out of that box, you're given no support, only criticism, ridicule, mockery. No matter how healthy, vibrant, healthy, and in mind and body and spirit you are and can influence other people. At some point, I'm hopeful that you'll see this dynamic and then can measure where are you at. Because if you're still looking for security and comfort, you're still part of that main culture and needing to justify and redeem yourself through some act, an act of love, an act of sex, an act of contrition, an act of service, an act of responsibility to someone or something, just so you can be accepted. I don't care how much of what you think you need you're given, you're still going to end up empty at the end of the day. So the next day you start all over again, trying to fill up your day with busyness. And then life becomes nothing more than trying to run one step ahead of our insecurity. The busier you are, the less time you have to think about yourself. Load yourself up with meaningless responsibilities. Just keep running as fast as you can. So how do we change this? Well, I've got some ideas. These are just ideas. They're just starting points. Take them and run with them in whatever way you can. First, what are you afraid of losing? Do you fear being replaced? If you don't have a fear of loss, then you will always have the capacity to grow and gain. If you have a fear of loss, your fear of loss anchors you so you can't really connect with what you need to. It is the connecting of the energies that's what's important. Right now, we are all nothing more than trillions, tens of trillions of electrical impulses flashing non-stop. And that flash is based upon a historical reference point. All we're doing is just recreating the sensations of the past. And anytime you have a sensation, it creates a pleasure principle. So we're trying to recreate pleasure by what we're doing with our actions today and hoping there'll be an outcome. In that context, and you can say that those individuals who are seeking pleasure because food at one time was pleasurable to them, every time they eat, they're trying to recreate the pleasure energy and get the endorphins going, because the endorphins in your biochemistry is going to directly respond to these pleasure principles. So in effect, we are all addicts to pleasure. And what is the greatest pleasure in our society? Love. So anything we have connected to that compares itself to love, we feel, my goodness, I want to recreate this. But it was a moment in time when we felt it. Boom, it's gone. Well, we want it back. I want that feeling back. I want that feeling. What do I got to do to get that feeling? Okay, it depends upon which part of the system you're in. If you're in the main system, we've already been told by country western music, you're nobody till somebody loves you. So you got to go make someone love you. So you got to fall in love. Well, you can't fall in love. And you can't fall out of love. It's just a biochemical response. But we don't want to look at it at that level. We don't want to see ourselves as 100 trillion connected cells. We want to see ourselves as one whole person with a whole heart that breaks easily and needs to be constantly reminded of how sensitive it is. Otherwise, it will weep itself away like one big melting ice cube. All it is just a... You like that? Write that down then. It's just a series of pulses, sensations. And so we think, okay, the pleasure comes in security. That's a pleasure. I want that pleasure of security, not having to worry. Think of how much of our life is spent trying to have something that we think will make us secure and give us a special feeling. And the whole process of getting there has been negated. We have no consciousness of the day-to-day process of living. We're goal-oriented. Everything's a goal. Work hard and get there. No, it doesn't work that way. Because every day I'm still a person. It's only when I'm present in this one single moment of my life and open myself up to all the energies that I can bring in and be aware that the energies will have either constructive or destructive force, be positive or negative, will allow me to vibrate at one level and cause those shocks in my system, or will depress my system. When I'm conscious in the moment, I am aware of the moment has power. When anything comes to my past, the past has no capacity to create a reality in this moment that's meaningful for me. And all we do is carry the past with us every single day. What in the world do you expect is going to be different tomorrow if all you're going to take is today into tomorrow? Then tomorrow doesn't exist as a unique experience. We want the future to be a certain way, so we plan for the future. We work towards a future, negating the moment. All we're doing is living off the recreation of those old impulses that are stimulating throughout our body, positive or negative, and that dictates our actions. We're afraid of being replaced. As we get older, fear of our aging, fear of our wrinkles, fear of our impotency. Most men over the age of 40 are afraid of sex. At one level, because they're afraid they cannot sustain the kind of power and potency they once had at 18 that was more vibrant. So there's a fear. So it's never a completely connected act. It's a rapid act. Anytime you're afraid of losing something, you've already committed yourself to a negative energy. Because every single second you're losing something. You're losing the life that you just had. Because every single moment in life is changed. Hence, you must recreate a reality every single moment of your life. Reality can only exist in the moment you're in. Yesterday's reality no longer exists. Tomorrow's doesn't exist. But we're either mourning the past or projecting to the future. Two places that you don't want to be, the past or the future. And almost all your psychic thoughts, almost all your efforts are to get you to one place or keep you in the other. The second way that we can so understand that and focus on it, and you can help yourself. The next issue. Which of these fears are permanent? Now there's some fears you keep having over and over again, all the time. What are they? How do they impact you? What decisions do you make based upon the fears you have? The fears that you have will directly affect whether or not you are free to have a new and unique experience, bringing in energy, because all you are is the energy you bring in for that new experience. So when I'm present to bring in new energy and connect with something that is a new energy, then I can vibrate that energy. My whole body will vibrate based upon the energy I'm open to. But if I'm already connected with all this existing energy, then what's the new energy going to do? I'm going to hold it at bay. I'm going to think about it and process it, but I'm going to keep it out there. As a result, at the end of the day, all we have is yesterday's energy to process. We're still a prisoner of yesterday. Fear. blocks the new energy from coming in. How many times have you heard people say, now I'm going to be the way I want to be from the past? Yeah? Well, what were you in the past that was so great that you'd want to reproduce it? Which of those parts of yourself? You think you're going to change a bit and a piece of yourself and it's going to make a difference? No, you got to change the whole. How do you do that? How do you really change? Well, there's several things you can do. First, ask yourself what you accumulate. How much time and energy do you spend on it? We like to accumulate things for our journey. We feel that the more things we accumulate, the easier our journey will be, and the more we'll be able to justify the stage of our journey that we're in. So if I have a certain amount of money, and a certain amount of friends, and a certain amount of things I've done, a certain amount of possessions, then I can say, well, I'm on a good journey, look what I have to show for it. So we're always trying to show things to people as if we're saying, take a look, this is the exhibit of my life, come into my exhibit. We shouldn't be trying to accumulate things. Do you think anybody really cares how much money you make and how hard you work to make it? Who cares? It's meaningless. Trying to make life more austere by minimalizing it allows you the freedom simply to be. At the end of the day, it's not what you own that makes you unique, it's who you are and your capacity to share who you are without relying upon having to bring up everything like a whole Broadway extravaganza. Look at all the singers and dancers in my life. No, I'm looking at you. Take away the music, take away all the facade. It's just you. But we're afraid of that because we haven't developed ourselves. We're afraid. We have to surround ourselves. It's like a person lip syncing a song. We're afraid of what our real voice would sound like. Our real emotions would be expressed. How do you compete? For what do you compete? Against whom do you compete? We're a highly competitive society. Almost everything within our society is based upon winning or losing. From presidential races to basketball and sports teams, to getting the job, to getting the person, we're competing. How many times have we heard people talking ill of other people simply because they were jealous, and it made it easier to compete with someone at some level if we denigrated them? We've all heard people in different ways. What they were really doing was competing. Competing for attention, competing for affection as if there's a shortage of it. And as long as we compete, we'll get it exclusively. Again, it comes from insecurity. What is the central meaning of your life? We all should have a central meaning. And if we understand the central meaning of our life, then we're not disguising the activities day to day by being filled up with superficial meaning. You get to a certain point in life where you look in the mirror and say, what do I have that's real and what do I have that's superficial? How much of my life has been filled up with things that have no real meaning? Now, here's the issue. You can't live that life over again. You've just wasted a lot of time. For what? What were you trying to prove? What were you trying to show? You can never live another moment over. And yet you keep wasting those moments if somehow through the suffering of the waste, you're redeeming a life that's not actualized. You'll never find redemption through a lack of meaning. And all the things you do and all the tears you shed and all the concern you have will not replace a single joyful moment of free being and an expression of love of life. It's hard for us to get there, and we work awful hard to do that. But you can't do that if you're already connected to everything else that is keeping you from it. What do you sacrifice to find meaning, and what do you do to avoid the truth of your meaning? Now, mind you, you either have meaning and the truth of it, or you have non-meaning and you have to justify non-meaning. None of you wake up today and go do something without meaning. But if you ask yourself how authentic it is to your real self, your real needs, what in the world do you expect to happen if you keep living meaningless days? filling it with obligations and responsibilities, things that from the outside look okay, things that will make you seem like a together person. But when you strip away all that, it's just distractions. Distractions. You take the average person today, whether they're a 20-year or 30 or 40 or 50, 60-year-old, and you ask them, don't do anything for a day, just be. No television, no music, no conversation, and they will panic. They can't handle it. So we keep occupied. Keep yourself busy. Why? I've been busy. If you go busy yourself in meditation, it's still keeping busy. You run off to do yoga, it's still busy. I can tell you that most of the people I filmed who were packed into a yoga center downtown were highly stressed people. And that was just a more natural form of opium. Because they left that studio and went right back out and re-engaged because they had not disconnected. They merely distracted themselves for an hour thinking, as long as I'm doing yoga, I'm de-stressing. No, because you went back out into a stressful environment and still going to react to it. What you do that merely strokes the consciousness to give you some sense of ease doesn't change anything. I'm looking for you to make fundamental change. You can't change till you're conscious of what change should be. Next issue. What's missing from your life and how does that affect you? Because whatever's missing from your life will affect you. It's not possible to have something missing without feeling it, because there's going to be a vibration for what is missing. This unrequited sensation that we feel, you're going to put something in its place. Always, when something is missing from our life, we substitute something. What have you substituted? You put something there. And it's what you put there that ends up becoming a sublimating distraction. Whether it's work or relationship or self-pity or drugs or smoking or eating, you're going to put something there. Focus upon the something that you put for what's missing in your life. And get it out of the way. Surrender it. Don't do it anymore. No matter how much pain you have to go through when you start to withdraw from things that superficially stimulate you and make you feel better superficially, it's an artificial stimulation and it's not authentic. Next issue. What do you do to prevent any interruptions in your normal behavior and lifestyle and beliefs? Think on these questions. Take your time. These are meant for you to write them out and focus on them. One question per day, and just focus upon it. Keep coming back to it. And keep realizing that you're merely an accumulation of living events that you've put into that question. Next, are you actively seeking any new directions? If so, how are you seeking these new directions? All the time people come to me and say, I'd like a new direction. All right, you want a new direction. What are you willing to do to put in that direction? Can you go into that new direction completely new? Surrender the old energy. People want to take everything that has accumulated in their past and bring it into something new and put something new on top of something old. You can't do that. You can't take the past and merely clean it up, wash it up and expect it to work. You've got to surrender it. And a new direction means you have to make a sacrifice. You have to go through a mastery of what it is you're trying to do with your new direction. Surrendering the fear of the past allows you to be present for what you want to do with this new direction. So if I want to do something new in my life, I have to surrender something old in my life. I can't have two energies competing. If you have two energies competing simultaneously, you're going to be drawn between one and the other, but you're connected authentically to neither. So you'll never completely feel that sense of bliss, authentic connection, and reality that you deserve. That's what happens when we're afraid to commit ourselves to something, because heaven forbid, how am I going to look? How many times people say, well, that's not me. How do you know it's not you? How do you know it's not you? Look in the mirror. Do you really want to be more of you? Be honest, take a careful look. Because from where I'm looking, I wouldn't want to keep bragging about, well, I don't want to change. I like the way I am. Really? Be honest. I don't think so. Well, having more of the same mindset of rigidity is merely saying, my feet are in concrete, Gary. Pull me out. No, I'm not going to. You pull yourself out. Well, I can't change, and you're right, and you won't. So then it's all for nothing. Just expect more of the same. The only thing that's going to happen from that day on is you're just going to get older and more decrepit. That's the best that's ever going to happen in your life. You think you look bad now? Wait 5 years from now. You're going to be happy with how you look today. Oh, if I only could look the way I did 5 years ago. And we forget that 5 years is going to come. But it can come differently if you're willing to change and honor the true and authentic self. More of this kind of stuck in the mud attitude will not change anything. And don't be afraid to experiment with your life. Life should be one big experiment. Trying things and seeing what it feels like. How does it vibrate? What is the energy? But be present for it. You can't do something new and have an old energy judge it. The old energy is dominant. You have to be present for the new, fully present in this moment. When you're present in this moment and you experience life, then you're allowing yourself to let it be what it is. But we then can't trust ourselves. So we look back. How many times have we been present for a moment that was blissful and turned around and looked back for how we should judge it? And boom, closed our mind right back up again. And where do you end up? We're only too willing to help people who really don't want to change but ask for our help. I'm sure you've met those people, right? A lot of time and energy they take. And what happens at the end of it? Nothing, right? Right back where you started. Next issue. Do you possess all of the resources to choose openness and growth? You have to be open to grow. You can't force change. When you're ready to change, you will find it effortless. You'll be open because openness means there's no conflict. You're open and present. Openness is without resistance. Change then can manifest. Change can only occur in a constructive way when there's an openness to it. Openness in the moment you're in, and you can experience that moment and allow a whole new series of sensations and awarenesses and conscious connections. Don't judge it by the old mindset. The energies are not compatible. We're always trying to take that big paradigm, the major structure of our society and all of its rules, and judge our current behavior by it. Why do you think that only a handful of physicians in the United States are using complementary medicine? Because they know, even though they are aware they can heal people, they know that it will not be rewarded. So their reward, hence their security, hence their place in the hierarchical order, is more important than the growth of an open mind and truly healing people. They'll be rewarded without healing people. They'll be rewarded for the effort. It'll all be a game, an illusion. We'll pay you and reward you and make you well known and respected and loved, even if every patient you have dies. That's the power of a paradigm. But if you get to that place where you can be in the moment and you say, wow, how can I make that choice when this is more reasonable and I see it now? Because when you're open, you see things you don't see otherwise. Your belief system gives you that view. That's it. Openness gives you this view. The vibration is in the larger view. And finally, describe the changing image of yourself. What has been the crisis that has forced you to pay more attention? Again, a crisis creates a sensation. Pay attention to it. How does that crisis make you aware that you really have to change? The crisis can be the one thing that saves us. The pain and the struggle comes from trying to hold on to the past and the past sensations. Those past moments of pleasure in eating a cheeseburger or smoking a cigar, instead of being present and having the mastery of doing something that is truly connecting with what is essential to his well-being and a different form of happiness. Have you feared full disclosure? Every crisis we have is a lesson. If we're willing to embrace the crisis, then we're willing to embrace the lesson. The lesson of our crisis then allows us to see what we connected to, because it's only what you connect to and repeat that causes you to get into the crisis. All of your crises are nothing more than the inappropriate connections you have made. How in the world did you make those connections? The larger belief system encouraged you, rewarded you. No one stopped you from eating the hamburgers, the hot dogs, the french fries. No one stopped you from gambling. No one stopped you, discouraged you from smoking or drinking. Smoking more so, but not drinking, as long as you socially drank and socially smoked and socially ate. No one stopped you from voting in the wrong way for the wrong people. No one stopped you or discouraged you from not participating in the world or caring about rights, human rights, civil rights. No one discouraged you from that. So when we see that we're nothing more than an amalgamation, a collection of all the things that we have connected to, then at some point there is an accumulative effect of all the energy, and that cumulative effect can be disease or emotional breakdown. Because the weight of balance at the human psyche, the energy of the cell, shifts at a certain point. You are doing more to create disharmony than harmony. And when you've done enough to create disharmony with such gross imbalance, that's when the crisis occurs. But remember, you will only manifest a crisis at the end stage of the inappropriate activity. It could have taken you a lifetime before you get to your crisis. Imagine if you would have taken time along the way to examine cause and effect, to question your values and beliefs, to look honestly and openly at everything you had done up to that point and see, had it produced something that was authentic and meaningful, or something that was merely obligatory and you were being responsible as a good citizen to your belief system. At the end of the day, it'll be one or the other. Your crisis, if you examine it, can reveal who you had become, and hence give you the freedom to become who you should be. It's almost always in our society that it's through crisis that we have an opportunity to grow and learn. I wish that it were otherwise. I think it's imperative that we not wait till there's crisis. A heart attack, a stroke, a nervous breakdown, going broke, dissolving relationships, addictive behavior, lying, cheating, betraying, compromising true values, until one day we wake up and say, whoa, what have I become? Because all you have become is a collection of the energies that you've lived through up to that point. And the body doesn't forget. So everything you've lived through is vibrating. And that vibration becomes a sensation. So every cell that vibrates negatively, you're going to look for something that will stimulate an opposite feeling. Hence the tranquilizers, the alcohol, the feel-good friendships, the food, constant busyness. That's what happens when our life is so out of balance that we're looking in the wrong places to rebalance it. The belief system won't allow us to rebalance it authentically, because to rebalance a belief system that's out of whack authentically means we may have to disassociate with much of the belief system. A doctor becomes a holistic doctor. Holistic doctors are not accepted by the mainstream. They're only tolerated as long as they don't threaten the status quo. That's why we have no holistic doctors, or holistic psychologists, or holistic nutritionists. You can still be tolerated and still survive within the mainstream, providing you do not do so much that it threatens anyone else. So you will do chelation, or you'll do some homeopathy, or you'll do a little deep breathing or yoga. These can be tolerated, but not accepted. But what if you want to do everything? Oh, then you're too much. You've gone overboard. You're out of control. Out of whose control? Out of the establishment's control. And then they say goodbye and push you out. And then your own insecurity says, whoa, how am I going to survive? Because you needed that security. So we do things by bits and pieces. We take one piece of a puzzle, and every day we keep looking at that piece of a puzzle, and we turn it 16 ways and say, why don't I see a true and honest and authentic reflection of who I am? Because you've only got one piece of a puzzle. Your job is one piece. Your relationship is one piece. Your belief system is one piece. Your body is one piece. The choices you make are pieces. But they don't mean that they're your picture that's going to form this. It's only when you put it all together for yourself, and you can only do that when you're completely authentic, when you're completely natural, when you're completely honest, completely open, completely vulnerable. Then you take all the pieces, you take the other pieces that don't work that someone told you, that's your face, that's your face, that's your face. And you say, but it's not my face. And they say, yes it is. Who are you going to believe? Your face or us? And you say, no, I'm taking this out and I'm putting my true pieces in. And whoa, you look and you say, that's me. And you think, I feel it. I feel that authentic vibration. And then you've connected with the real self. That's the journey that we have to take. And you thought maybe that you were where you were comfortable. And I'm suggesting you're not finished yet. Thank you very much.